This chapter talked about how to choose music for your students and the different types of method books and how you should what you should take into consideration when you choose what you're going to give your students. So the first big point that the chapter talked about is overprogramming, which is basically programming music that is above your student's skill level. And they're unable to balance their sound, blend their sound, play the certain style that you're trying to achieve. They're not able to phrase the music correctly, or they're just not in tune. So being able to choose music that suits your students well is super important. So it explains how to choose music for your orchestra. One way is to give the piece to your students and have them sight read it, and the goal should be for to determine if it's a good fit or not, if they can run through it. If you do, and there'll be a couple of spots that won't sound great, but finding those difficult spots and isolating them in rehearsals, and then they would be able to play it correctly would be the goal. So yeah, just a few major breakdowns in the piece, and then polishing that in the work would be good if that was the case. Also the length of the work, so if it's 3 pages long or maybe 4, some students might lose their attention span is too short, and they won't they're not accustomed to playing that long of a piece. So just considering that, and the length of your overall program too. If it's an hour, and then it might be too long for a younger group. You should consider the goals of the piece that you're going to put on your program. So if your group struggles with doing dynamics, maybe programming a piece that has a lot of dynamics so they can work on getting better at that. The same goes for phrasing or style. So if you have a classical piece, maybe working on a certain type of bow stroke that you want with them while they're playing that, so they can get better at their bow control or something like that. Also, you should take into account their students' interests. So I'm not saying that you should always just program things that they're interested in, because then they won't learn that way, but maybe putting in a piece from a movie or a popular song that they like, to keep them engaged and excited to go to orchestra. In general, if you program 3 works on your concert, one of them should be pretty easy and shouldn't require a lot of rehearsal time to learn the piece. The second piece should be at the group's level. So, and that should be the piece that should sound probably the best, and should be super polished for the concert, because it meets their technical skill the best. And then the third one should be a little bit above their actual skill level, to challenge them and to also push them to learn new skills, etc. It also talked a little bit about method books. So there are about 5 or 6 big points you should take into consideration when choosing what method book to work with for your students. The first one is appearance. So is the book printed in color? Is it black and white? Is it visually appealing to look at? Because if you have a method book that's just all black and white and it's not really engaging, it might not hold the attention of some of your students. And if it's kind of a book for super beginners, it might not engage your high schoolers that well. So yeah, just visual aesthetic stuff to take into consideration. The second one is content. So is the content that is in the book meaningful and worthwhile for your students? Is it at their skill level? Is it too easy or is it too difficult for them? The next one is structure, so the pacing of the method book. If it's not very clear and it's too fast, or it's the opposite and it's too slow, taking that into account. Also approach, how the method book teaches overall. I know String Explorer kind of has like a theme to it where it's like there's an explorer and it's like a jungle theme. So just like comparing and contrasting the approaches that each book takes. And then assessment, like does the book assess your students in any way? Like are there playing quizzes in the book? Just things like that.